Hey, welcome back to Truck Tech, everyone. It's a new show today. Notice we've got the headphones on now. We're trying to get styled here. Really glad you're back with us. We are going to talk about infrastructure around electrification again today. This is something that, it's not a tiring topic because there's so much to look at around it. And our guests today come from two ends of it. They are partners in a certain sense, and that is Tom Ashley from Volterra. He's the head of utility relations for that startup. And then also Mark Esguerra, who is the head of distribution for Southern California Edison and works with a lot of the electric truck startups. So we'll be getting a better picture, I hope, from them on what's happening in this space after we do a few headlines. So today we're finding that Daimler Truck, PACCAR, and Cummins are going all in on bringing battery cell production to the United States. So this is unusual. We've seen it in the car business with the car companies setting up ventures and battery making plants and so forth. But this is kind of a first for the trucking space. The three companies announced a multi-billion-dollar onshoring effort to make lithium iron phosphate cells with the help of a Chinese battery technology company. Production is expected to begin around 2026, maybe 2027. The site selection is still pending. That will be a three-way joint venture with the fourth partner being the electric technology supplier, battery supplier from China will be a 10% partner. The others all have 30%. Nikola has another electric truck fire to deal with. One of its battery electric tray models burst into flames inside a lithium plant on Monday. The trucks, of course, are already under recall. Nikola says the trucks in the customer hands are still safe to drive as long as the main battery switch is flipped to the off position at all times and the trucks are parked outside. Nikola can monitor these trucks remotely so that they can see if there's problems coming. Finally, middle mile autonomy specialist Gatik has a new customer. That's Tyson Foods. Tyson signed a 3-year deal to bring Gatik on as a third party transportation supplier. It'll help Gatik purchase 4 Class 7 Isuzu trucks for autonomous shuttles from Tyson manufacturing to finishing plants. Think things like breading chicken in Northwest Arkansas. Tyson sees the possibility of expanding this to as many as 40 markets if the autonomous runs work out as expected. Okay, there are too many angles to the electric truck infrastructure story to just point fingers over its slow development. My guests today have a more complete picture of the issue. Let's welcome Mark Esguerra from Southern California Edison and Tom Ashley from Volterra to Truck Tech. Guys, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Tom, good to see you. I hope Mark will be able to join us. I understand there were some firewall issues there. I'm especially impressed as we look at this issue that we've got so many people trying so hard to get us over the hump, really, in terms of infrastructure. And maybe you can just sort of describe a little bit. I think Volterra is known to some of our audience, but maybe you want to give us a quick summary of your role in all this.
Sure. Well, thanks, Alan. So I lead government and utility relations at Volterra. And just as a reminder for the audience, Volterra's model is to buy and develop real estate for EV charging. And we do that in a couple different ways, both in concert with fleet customers who then contract to utilize the site. And we're also, in some circumstances, working ahead of our fleet customers and developing facilities in parts of the country that we think need infrastructure. And indeed, by working a little bit ahead of fleets, we think we can help not just lower barriers to fleet electrification, but really accelerate that process.
Well, part of what you do, I think, if I've read properly, is that you do map things out. You keep a very good eye on sort of what the infrastructure looks like, where you might want to put something, and how that might play out. I mean, part of that really would seem to be the utilities job too. But this idea of building a business out of having charging available to all who need it, can you make that happen today? And if not today, when is that practical?
Well, Alan, we and many are working on this right now. I think what I would say is, Volterra is actively developing sites to meet the needs of our fleet customers and partners. And as I mentioned earlier, also work ahead a little bit in some cases of those same fleets. And I just want to contrast that we're not trying to serve all needs on electrification. We are focused in the fleet segment primarily at this stage, and then working a little bit beyond traditional electrification. We're partnering with Nikola to help develop hydrogen fueling facilities for them that will be brought to the market under the Hyla brand.
Yeah, that announcement was one I was able to catch up with Matt Horton on back at the ACT Expo, and that was something that was huge for obviously for Nikola, which is now building those fuel cell trucks, and I think they begin deliveries in the fourth quarter. You will put hydrogen at some of the sites where you also have presumably electrification, battery electric opportunity. Will you also be doing this with mobile fueling or mobile charging, or how will that go?
Well, I think what I can say just first on the hydrogen front is we will build to customer demand. Is our current vision for developing hydrogen. In some cases, those may be standalone hydrogen refueling locations. In other cases, they may be combined with traditional battery electric charging. I would say that we are looking to serve fleets as their needs are understood and communicated to us. We are not actively at this stage serving fleets via mobile charging, but I think that we're certainly comfortable being both technology and operations forward. And so if we get that ask from fleet customers, I suspect we'll say yes and find a way to deliver best-in-class service in that context.
Well, I mean, part of it really is what you can't do, say, in the ground today, could be done at least on a mobile basis if that was something that, I know that Hyla is offering mobile fuelers, at this point on the hydrogen side. And to some extent, I mean, there's also a number of folks that are doing, mobile charging, and I just don't know whether that's something that is really going to be important in the early days. I know that for example, Watt EV down at the Port of Long Beach, they have some mobile charging there while everything gets done that they need. And I just wondered if that's one of those sort of stopgap solutions that might be necessary, in the near term.
Well, Alan, not speaking specifically for Volterra, but around sort of this fleet transition largely, if we think about a traditional vehicle, it's not too difficult for a service system to provide, whether it's gas, diesel, or otherwise, in a 5-gallon tank that they bring along on the back of a truck. Now that we're talking about vehicles that are fueled by electricity, it's a different circumstance, but a similar paradigm that you can provide a mobile battery that can facilitate charging on the back of a service vehicle. And so I think we're going to be seeing that collectively take hold in the traditional service industry. And I think certainly charging providers will be evaluating either providing those services directly or partnering with others to enable them as needed. I think part of your question, however, may be in relation to some of the challenges that the industry is facing in bringing power to sites and electrifying facilities. And we're really seeing the industry get quite creative with how to approach sometimes uncertainty with the delivery of power, and in some cases, batteries or distributed energy resources are part of that solution. We're also seeing some stakeholders take forward a temporary solution of actually using traditional fuel for generators to develop electricity on site.
Yeah, I was going to go to that, which is the genset answer. And it's something that I think, especially in terms of having, ample power to meet demand that maybe you weren't expecting. I know the whole idea is to have a good idea on what's coming and when. so that you're not surprised. But I think having some stationary power can't be a bad thing. I see that Mark has joined us. Mark, thanks for coming on. You may be on the phone, so we're just going to look at a photo of you for the moment. But I did want to ask you a little bit. At the top of the show, we talked about maybe some finger pointing that goes on in terms of utilities being the ones that aren't ready for electrification. I want to give you a chance to answer that without it being a gotcha, because I don't know if it's a fair assessment or not. Is it?
Well, let me just tell you a little bit about. First of all, thank you for inviting me to the show, and it's a great question. I will say that utilities have been operating under a regulatory construct of really building just in time because there was such a concern of overbuilding and the load not materializing. And what we're seeing here is we're starting to see a change where the load can materialize much quicker than it has in the past. And in fact, you used to have to build with a certain level of certainty, a certain level of milestones would have to be completed. And it took time for developers to get there. And what we're finding is that time to get to those certainty and those levels of milestones is happening much quicker. And not only is it happening quicker, we're seeing that the demand is coming in much higher. And so things that are happening now in the space is, really changing the narrative with the CPUC or the regulatory construct on, being able to proactively build. I will say that the grids were designed to handle kind of the expected growth that we were seeing typically. I know for California, we were focusing a lot on, how we address some of the light duty passenger vehicle growth. And we started to see the medium to heavy duty really start to take form as you start to see policy start to form and shape and act and move forward. And so things that we've done is to really proactively plan for that by identifying what the projected demand growth is going to be in those areas. And something that's very unique to Southern California Edison is that we actually looked at the state forecast that we were mandated to plan towards and really felt that it was coming in a little bit low. We've done our own work internally to understand where the growth is going to occur and really focus on key strategic areas to start proactively building. So it's something that we know it's going to take time to build the infrastructure. We have that planned our way. But in the meantime, we're also focusing on some of those interim bridging solutions that I heard the discussion happen before. For SCE, we are looking at mobile energy storage. We're also looking at our mobile substations, also an opportunity here. There's still some hurdles to clear, but those are infrastructures that we could deploy relatively quickly. There would be some need to get some support from a permitting and licensing to find opportunities to streamline that. But really getting creative on how to bridge those solutions while we are building the larger grid for the long term.
Sure. Well, you've got two programs at SCE that really address the fleet needs. There's the Make Ready Charge program, and then there's the Transportation Electrification Advisory Services. How do these work, and how widely known are they?
So for SCE, with these type of programs, like our Charge Ready program, it's really focusing on assisting businesses and property owners with deploying infrastructure and the necessary equipment to support their electric vehicle charging needs at their locations. And so these programs, they help by providing financial incentives, infrastructure, and as well as technical support to help facilitate the installation and maintenance of EV charging stations. So, we feel that this provides greater ease and affordability for our business customers that can now meet the growing demand for their own clean energy charging options from their customers, employees, communities, and tenants. So we feel like it's a really good program. We feel like there's great opportunities there to help educate folks more about the different programs that we have. But we feel like it's pretty widely known within our industry.
Yeah, Tom, I would pose this next question to you, but Mark, I feel free to weigh in here. How difficult is it to unlock the mystery of where the charging sites are and whether they can be developed, to a permanent state in a timely manner?
Well, Alan, I appreciate the way you posed this. I will admit that sometimes, from my view, it does feel like a little bit of an Easter egg hunt. The reality is, again, back to the Volterra model, we're also buying the real estate. And so there's also a land use component to our process, which is really critical. But by and large, we're not going to pull the trigger until we have adequate confidence, both on a land use approval pathway as well as, importantly, on a power delivery pathway. And I would just say that this is challenging. And when we're talking about sites that start at 2, 5, 10 plus megawatts, there are places on the distribution system where, that power is available today, and it's just about connecting the dots. But there are a lot of places on the distribution system where that power does not exist today. And then it's a question of what infrastructure and what processes need to be taken to build it. So I think this is really why, a lot of customers and potential customers are working with Volterra, is because this is very challenging. And they're seeing Volterra really prove ourselves in our ability to not just navigate this, but I think navigate it more efficiently than not just much of the rest of the market, but then the processes themselves necessarily lend themselves to at the moment.
Sure. Mark, if you want to take that, I've got another way to frame it up for you if you like, but you want to weigh in there?
Yeah, I could weigh in there. I think also some opportunities here on how we could better improve in this space is really through more comprehensive planning in terms of understanding what all the different fleets, local jurisdictions, local cities have in their plans in terms of expansion for electric needs, and really building getting that information to proactively design the grid based on those needs in the long term. I'd say some of the challenges that I see as from the utility side, if the first time we're hearing about a lot of these fleet requests is when they actually apply for service. I feel like that's going to be very challenging. Really, we want to engage fleets and these larger infrastructure developers early on in the process so that we can actually build it into our long-term plans, seek approval to start proactively build. And I understand that that's going to be more of a collaborative effort, to understand, where the growth is going to occur, how it's going to occur, and then how we can lay out the grid. So really early engagement, more comprehensive, coordinated planning amongst all the different entities in a particular region.
Well, and I don't pretend to really understand your business, but I understand that there can be 25 years of future planning where you'll look at all needs for a given area rather than say just the immediate one that's getting a lot of attention, which is electric trucks. I mean, we need that power, but you've got to figure out, who else is going to likely use it and over what time period. Am I correct there?
Absolutely. And also trying to factor in other needs for the grid, beyond just electrification, with the way we're seeing the grid kind of shaping up here with heavy reliance on electric service. Also, designing the grid, not only does it have the capacity, but it doesn't have the additional reliability and resilience going to be needed to be able to provide that urgent service when it's needed by our fleet, by our customers. And that may require even factoring in other requirements and including that as part of our build, so that as we move forward to expand our grid, we're really going there once, very minimal, and really upgrading it there to meet all the needs over the next several years so that we're not coming back multiple times.
So it's sort of a white space approach, basically. You would plan for eventual build out of, say, something that's not electrification based, but you would go ahead and sort of save space for it, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, and I'd call it the more comprehensive integrated planning. There are many different needs that the grid happens to have. Right now, the one that we're really super focused on over the next several years is electrification, but we also have life cycle asset replacement, we have wildfire mitigation, we have other climate change items. And so really, how do we prioritize those needs, urgent drivers, with electrification largely being one of the top drivers in areas, and really once we touch an area, look at all the needs, make sure we're addressing all those needs with the grid design to support them over the long run.
Yeah. You both have indicated that there are some regulations that could help solve the infrastructure issues. Obviously, money's one of those. We have the IRA now. We've got a few other places, at least, within California that's helping with, I think even the make-ready charging, it gets some PUC support. and that sort of thing, Public Utilities Commission. What else is needed, either on the regulation side, to sort of make this go better?
So I can start on that. I'd say for Southern California Edison, one of the first things that we're seeing is that we've developed a more proactive, we call it our transportation electrification grid readiness, which is basically one of the first in California where we've developed an alternative forecast that looks at a higher amount of electrification at a higher rate. And really, we've identified that we need to upgrade the grid in strategic areas, and really, requesting to get support to proactively build for this load that we're seeing, where historically there was you needed a high number of kind of like proof points that the load was practically there. And here it's one of those that it's happening. So really allowing the utilities to start proactively build and not really having to wait for that. The other area is, are there opportunities to streamline some of the processes for permitting and licensing? This infrastructure is going to run through different parts of the service territory that might have different licensing requirements. And how do we streamline that so we're not reviewing the same issues under different jurisdictions? How do we do that in a more efficient way to streamline that review and permitting process to be allowed to build sooner than later?
Yeah, Tom, how about from the Volterra side?
Yeah, well, Alan, so Mark mentioned it sort of at the top of when he joined. I would just really put some emphasis on the reality that our regulatory paradigm around approving regulated public utility investments needs to evolve. And I think that, can safely say that Southern California Edison is a bit of a pioneer in their approach to guiding the Public Utilities Commission here in California, or indeed making the recommendation of really planning and investing ahead of demand. So that is really the biggest piece, is to enable all of us, but the utility industry particularly, to work ahead of the articulated demand for this electric transportation transition, rather than work reactively when a load request letter or application is submitted. So that's the biggest one, I would say, in terms of power delivery. But on the vehicle regulatory side, here in California, we have the Advanced Clean Truck Rule, we have the Advanced Clean Fleet Regulation, and those are not regulating utilities, but they are regulating both the sale and purchase of these vehicles. And those are really very strong signals to help motivate all of us, including utility regulators, to help find our way forward to meet the moment.
I've heard someone say that perhaps the utilities are getting a free pass on that. Mark, what do you think? Do you think that's true? I mean, you've described SCE as sort of the canary in the coal mine on stepping out in front of some of this. Quick answer here, because we're running out of time.
Yeah, I don't know if we're getting a free pass at it. I do feel like the narrative has changed, where I think our commissions and a lot of the regulatory agencies are actually starting to see the growth that we've been calling out and really requesting in our general rate case. But I do think that there's still going to be, we're always going to get second guessed. Are we overbuilding in areas? Is the growth really going to be there? Because top of mind will be affordability pressures that are going to be coming down with this infrastructure comes at a cost. So I think we are stepping out there a little bit further, but we do see the demand growing, and we do believe that we can build the grid in a way that is not only safe, reliable, and affordable.
Okay, I'm going to give each your 20 seconds to wrap up here on this question. It seems like everybody in the space right now is offering consultative services. Obviously, one of the programs that SCE has is working with fleets. I think Volterra does it. The OEMs do it. Everybody pretty much does it. Do we have too many cooks in the kitchen right now? Quick answer here.
I would start up. I would say no. I think we're in early stages here, and there's some of the early adopters are more familiar, but we've met with a different segment of customers that are being moved, being made aware that there's electrification requirements to convert their fleets, and we feel like some of them don't even know where to begin. So we feel like that's going to be a valuable service for some of the other later adopters.
Okay. Tom, I'm going to cut you out of this. Sorry. I apologize. Thank you guys so much for being here. Sorry the technology failed us a little bit today. Folks, next week on Truck Tech, we will continue on this theme to a point when we have Salim Yousazada from Watt EV as our guest. He'll be talking about some of the efforts that they're doing both in the infrastructure and truck as a service space. I hope you'll join us for that. All of our shows from Truck Tech, about 30 of them now, are available at the FreightWaves YouTube channel. Click on shows and then Truck Tech, and then you'll get a playlist of all that's available. Hope you'll check that out as well. See you next time, everyone.